This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome to Gunners Rust Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal. And that we are. And you're probably wondering why Joe didn't do that intro, and that is because Joe has been called into work. Now he's a manager at Manager's Animal Rescue. Things like that might happen, but I don't think it'll be a regular thing. But either way, dogs need saving, and Arsenal fandom needs saving. So we've had to split our time, I'll come and help. You guys, you'll go and help the dogs. And we'll carry on as normal. But this is the Wednesday episode. This is here on iTunes and Spotify, completely free. And it is ad-free over on the Patreon. If you want to do the Patreon, it is £6 a month if you go through the link. And if you just search Gunners Rust on Patreon, if you have the app or whatever it is. And you get extra episodes, you get previews, you get reviews, you get interviews, you get all sorts. But either way, here we are today, ready to podcast about Arsenal. And at the minute, I feel like you almost need like a pre-workout before we do these podcasts, because not that I'm trying to find energy. I think the players might, but not me personally. It's just, I didn't realise how thick and fast these fixtures are going to come. So I feel like we've just got done worrying about that Newcastle game. And we're already getting ready for a Champions League semi-final. And in amongst all this, I feel like maybe we've forgotten that there's a Champions League semi-final at play, because we've been so worried about just our style of play. But this is some of the biggest games we'll play, potentially in people's lifetime. That we don't know when you're going to get back to this kind of scenario. I know we're on a great run of a quarterfinals, semi-finals, and then hopefully this year a final in the Champions League, natural progression. But you can't imagine it's always going to be there. Do you know what I mean? Like, Liverpool aren't in it every year. City aren't. United haven't been in a while. These things are cyclical in football. So you have to kind of enjoy the moments and embrace them while we have them, because this time next year we could be looking at having to win the last three to get fourth place, having not made it to any other finals. And that might sound really like a downer thing to say, but it's not. It's just a realistic, we just don't know what's coming. So you got to really enjoy it. So if you're out there and you're kind of stressing about tonight, as I am, and I'm going to try and talk out my feelings as always, just to step back and go, wow, semi-finals, Atletico, it's winnable. And I don't think it's been a long time since we had a winnable semi-final. And I think we have to go back to the time we reached the final and we had a winnable semi-final. So it is exciting. It is nerve-wracking. And the thing is, as soon as this match finishes, I don't know, they'll be on that plane coming back from Madrid, however the scoreline goes, and they'll be watching Fulham clips, because we've got that game on Saturday. And fixtures have been a big talking point. So we're actually going to start this episode by doing a lot of fixtures, talking about the change of fixtures, City's opportunity to change the fixtures, ours having to change the fixture on a Monday, people complaining about how many fixtures, and that is going to bleed on into what we saw last night with PSG and Bayern Munich and the level of football we saw, and maybe how these are actually linked in some way. In some ways not, in some ways I think they are. We'll discuss all that, and that will naturally again bleed into, and I don't know what I keep saying, talking about blood, that will bleed into the preview of the Atletico game tonight. And we're probably not even going to touch on the weekend. I'm going to save that for the end of week. And unfortunately, obviously, if you're not a Patreon, sign up to the Patreon, because that preview will be over there to get you raring to go for Fulham. And I think this is one of the best times ever to join the Patreon, because we are playing Fulham. Then we've got Atletico 3 days later. Then a couple of days later after that, we've got West Ham. Then we've got a little gap where we can decompress and go, okay, what we got? And then it actually slows down slightly. But I could also be gearing up to coming down to goal difference on the last day. We do not know. It could also be coming down to a Champions League final. We do not know. And these podcasts are going to come out quicker and quicker and quicker. And we're going to need, calming down, rare it up, just to dissect things. If you're an Arsenal fan like myself who just needs content, just to kind of process it, that isn't Sky Sports or Talk Sport or anything like that. Of course, Arsenal Fan TV. You don't want to go through that. You want to get a bit of positivity. That's why we're here, and that is why we're coming here so quick. So we'll start a little bit with the fixtures. So there's been some news this week. We'll start off with City. We'll start off with City briefly. City asked to move their Palace and Bournemouth game in a different order. It's becoming. I don't know if it's how it happens every year. There's a little bit of a problem, but ironically, maybe this all stems deeper, and it's maybe there's too many European teams now in the league. When you look at it, there's the Europa Cup semi-final, I believe, is a team that could get relegated this year in Forest versus Aston Villa, who are looking to get Champions League football. So we could be in a world where Forest could win the Europa League and also be in the Championship, which I don't think's ever happened. And, how does that attract new players? Do they come because they want Championship football or Champions League football, but they have to play Championship? Like, does Morgan Gibbs-White stay? Does Elliot Anderson stay because they have the Champions League football? I don't know. I don't know how that works. I find that tough to believe. Two things. I don't think they're going to win the Europa League, and I also don't think they're going to get relegated. So that is a little bit if, buts and maybes. And we work in absolutes here, don't we? So we don't know with that, but that is interesting. But also with that is fixture build-up. So we've got a relegation battle going on with a team that have to keep getting fixtures moved because they're going deeper into Europe. Aston Villa are in a top 4 race, and it seems like Man United and Liverpool that really want to find out, where we're sitting. Chelsea even. But they're dealing with Aston Villa, who are in Europe, so they're having to move fixtures. Then, if you look even deeper, there's Crystal Palace, who are kind of mid-table this season, if not slightly lower, but they're in Europe still. They're in the Conference League, and they're in a semi-final. And with that, ironically, Crystal Palace, if they get through, make it to that final, they have to play the 2 top teams before the end of the season. And with that, what happens is, for example, City and also City going domestically as deep as they did in the Carabao and the FA Cup. They got Carabao Cup games moved for Arsenal and City because obviously we had to get that game in at the weekend. Then they've gone deeper into the FA Cup, so they had to have a midweek game before the FA Cup. They're now looking to try and get their Crystal Palace game done. But, for example, they can't do it this week. It's a European week. They can't do it week after because it's a European week. So, therefore, it's pushing it almost to the last week. And what they were trying to do was trying to switch the Bournemouth game around. And realistically, the genuine reason for it, and I know there's other talk of, they're complaining a lot about getting to Wembley a lot because the fans have to travel from Manchester. I understand all that. And there's also 2 ways of looking at that. But either way, with all that, they just wanted to kind of have the fans not travel as much, as frequently and whatever. Realistically, what they were trying to do was move the harder game around so that the Palace game came around their final a bit more, a little tighter to their final, so they could get a slightly easier fixture with Palace and Bournemouth stretch it further so that maybe they fall out of form before the end of the season and they have less to play for. So therefore, you're not playing the team that what we got at the Emirates with Bournemouth. So there was definitely some, they won't say it, but a lot of dark arts there. I know we're dark arts FC apparently, but a little bit. And the Premier League came down hard and said, absolutely not. We're not switching the order that we put out. And I think that's fair. Ironically, the order they put out had Crystal Palace playing weeks ago. So they already were changing the order, but it does seem harsh because obviously when you move things like that, like for example, Bournemouth going to Manchester or Manchester having to go to Bournemouth, and there's a lot of things in play. And this is what's going to kind of correlate into what I want to talk about with the Arsenal game, because the Arsenal's last home game is the week after West Ham, which is Burnley at home. They've moved it from, I believe it was a Sunday afternoon, into a Monday night kickoff. And you've seen this happen a lot, again, when we're talking about people getting deeper into Europe, and that's causing knock-ons. Man United, not that they were getting deep into Europe, but because of the teams that are around them who had to play at a certain time, their matches kept getting bumped. So Man United, if you don't know, I've played pretty much Monday Night Football the last 3 games, and I think they might have another one. I know this simply because my wife's auntie is a big Man United fan, and she had planned to go see the Brentford game on the Sunday. I think it was supposed to be at 2:00, I believe. Airbnb, travel, all that paid for. I went. I saw her probably 4 weeks ago, and I said, "Oh, you're going to see United?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm so excited." And then I looked up and I said, "Oh, what, Monday Night Football?" She goes, "No, it's Sunday." She didn't even know it'd been changed, because that's the thing. Is like, this is how little they're worrying about the fans. Is the fans aren't even aware. Like, you buy that ticket, unless you're a fan like me or do a podcast or you're very up on it. You don't know. For example, we were wrestling Jack Murphy's in Swansea the other day, and someone we wrestled was a United fan. this is how confusing it's getting. He's a big United fan. He didn't know they were playing on Monday night when we were wrestling. He was like, "What?" And yeah, you might say maybe he's not that big a fan, maybe, but there is a confusion to it, and and then there's money out of pocket. People having to miss work. People that work on the Monday that bought an Airbnb. Think of this: people, you see these stories. They travel from Australia to go see United or Arsenal or City or any team really, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 weeks prior. Oh, we're moving out to a Monday. And it's like, oh, my flight's Monday. I can't go now. So now they're out of pocket for a ticket, out of pocket for accommodation, all these things, and they've flown thousands of pounds worth, especially in the current climate with fuel and stuff. So it does remind you that the fans are definitely last, and nothing more apparent than the Arsenal one. They've moved Arsenal to Monday night on our last home game, and there's a lot to break down there because I think the first and foremost, which is the last thing thought about by the FA or the Premier League or anything, is fans. People have probably, I know, for example, Arscast do a live podcast every single last home game, and they usually do it Saturday night, and then they go to the game Sunday. Or if it's on a Saturday, they do it on a Friday night, and they do it Saturday, or they do it in the day Saturday before the game. However it is, they work it around. This game was stated for the Sunday up until the other day, 2 days ago. That is, I think it's 20 days out from that game. Not even that. I think it's actually less. It might be 18 days out. They've changed that fixture to a Monday night. So I assume they probably had a venue picked. That might not change, maybe, but there's probably people that went, I thought about it. I thought I might go to that because I've never gone to one. And we know James, and it might be quite fun to kind of hang out and all that kind of stuff. And you would go, all right, I'm going to travel for us 3-4 hours to London. I'm going to get some accommodation. I'm getting a ticket for the Sunday. I'll get accommodation for Sunday night, and I'll be back Monday morning, and I'll take the Monday off work, for example. And then 3 weeks out, which I don't think is long, less than 3 weeks out, they've moved it. And you imagine, you go, oh, okay, well, I'm going to have to sell my ticket because I've got work that day. Or I'm going to have to take that day off work, and then you don't make the money that pays for the accommodation, things like that. And it's London. It's expensive. And I noticed that they're dealing with that. And I think Andrew from the Outcast is flying from Ireland. But I think the amount of people that probably come out for the last day of the season, I saw Chef Reacts, who's a big American kind of social chef, I guess, social media chef. He's a long-term Arsenal fan. He's a wrestling fan, Detroit Tigers, but he's a big-time Arsenal fan. He's never been to London, and he came out, and I think a couple of weeks ago he said, "Oh, they've moved this fixture. There's a chance I'm going to be flying during it." And in the end, he got away with it, and he was there. But that's the perfect example. And again, he's someone who's probably making decent money. He's in the public eye. But think of people that have maybe saved up for the last 2 years to come out for the last home game, and then when it gets announced, okay. And I know they do say, fixtures may change, all that. I understand that. But 2 weeks out, you probably think, yeah, I can buy my ticket now, right? Do you know what I mean? If it's too tight. And when you look at the reasoning for it, it's actually it's not valid. No one's in Europe. It gives us, I believe, 8 days rest instead of 7 at a weird time where they're making us play every 2 days. The team we're against in Burnley are already relegated. They're having to travel down from Burnley now on a Monday night, which means they're not going to get home till 3 or 4 in the morning. They might even have to leave the game early. It's also the last home game at the Emirates, which means usually what happens is, you finish the game and whatever happens, they go back to the dressing room. Peter plays a couple songs on the old radio or whatever, on the tannoy. They come back out and they do a lap of honour for the crowd for such a great season, and whatever's happening at that point, for all we know, we've lost the season at that point. I don't know. And the reason I haven't said the other one was because that's my next point. They usually have their families out, whereas this is going to be at 10:30 at night. So everyone's going to have left because they need to get the last train home. They need to get the underground. They got work the next day. They got to put children to bed. The children might even not be able to stay the whole game because it's a late game. They might have, you're talking things like, maybe if you do really well at school this year, you can go to the last home game. It's bought 2 weeks ago. All right, you did really well. Here we go. And now it's a Monday night. Can't go. It's a school night. We can't, you might live in Newcastle and you're going to make a day of it and you bought the accommodation. You and your kid are going to go down. Instead, it's like, okay, well, you're out of school on the Monday, so we don't have enough time to travel down, or we have to pull you out, which I don't think you can do. So there's things like that. But also the players, the wives and the kids and stuff aren't going to do the the walk around the pitch because it is too late. They have school the next day. They have things to do. So all of that goes. And then there is a really, really weird situation where there's a chance that City could play and lose their next couple games and Arsenal win their next couple games. And we win the league that day, which would mean we'd lift the trophy at about 11:15 on a Monday night, which is so strange. It would be like that year that... by the way, not going to happen. City aren't going to lose a couple. We're not going to win out. And, it's very unlikely, but it just shows you how little they have faith that could even happen. Because they're like, well, it'll be good. And, it'd be like the year that Liverpool won it in COVID, where it was all dark. And that's not what you expect. There's certainly, if you wait 20 years to win the league, if we, touch wood, could win the league, you want that to be, a hot day. And again, you can't guarantee it's ever going to be at home. Like, you're not going to have one home game left after you win the title. There's no guarantees for that. But it just seems odd to move it, and there is actually no reason other than I think Sky just want to promote. We have football Saturday, we have football Sunday, the FA Cup final, I believe. We have football Monday night in the title race. Someone could win the league. Tuesday night is the rearranged Palace game, I believe, with City. And then there could be another ebbs and flows, Here's another one in the title race. Just before, they're just trying to eke out more nights. I'm sure there's probably a game on a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They're going to be like, right at the end of the season, we're giving you 5 nights of football. And it just seems like it's just so superficial. They're not thinking of the fans. And again, it's not that the teams are complicit. I'm sure the teams are agitated by it. But they also take the money from Sky. And, there's all these things. And... it is a hard one to break down, but it just feels they're really not taking consideration humans and the people that make football. We saw in COVID, football's not football. Take away that crowd, it's not an enjoyable watch. I watched, I think it was Fulham Villa the other day, and it was so quiet at Craven Cottage. It felt like a COVID game again. And I almost just didn't want to watch it because it was just too quiet. I could hear the players shouting for the ball and stuff. I thought, it's like PTSD. And it's just that reminder. It's like, if you want, Sunday night, ideally a nice warm day, everyone's had a couple of drinks in London, they've met up with their friends, and here's the other thing, is season ticket holders. Sometimes, the guy that sits next to you, down the row from you, it's the last time you're going to see them till August, like 3-4 months away. And, it's a nice day for everyone, and this happened, I think, Brighton and Liverpool, I think someone played a home game last year on the Monday night, their last home game. And this year it's happening to Arsenal. So one team is going to play their last home game at a time in which they can't really do anything. And ironically, it's one of the teams in the title race who could win the league that night. Don't think it's going to happen, but it's just I find that very strange, just because they want 5 nights of football, or whatever it is. What that's going to bleed into, and I'm going to keep bringing up blood, and I don't know why, is the fixtures. Generally speaking, and there's a big outrage in a minute. City are not happy with the lack of rearranged fixtures, but what comes with that is people saying it's unfair what they're having to do. It looks like City are going to play 4 games in 11 days in May, which is funny because between the 25th of April, where we played the game versus Newcastle, we would have played 5 games in 15 days by the time we play West Ham on the 10th of May, which is every 3 days. And in amongst there is 2 giant semi-finals and 2 London derbies. The game against Athleti tonight would be our first of 4 games in 11 days. If you break that down even more, that's 2.9 days, 2.8 days. And it's not newsworthy at the minute. But what is everyone saying, oh my God, City got to play 4 games in 11 days. Well, we're literally starting that as of today. We've got 4 games in 11 days. So both teams are having to do it. But it does seem mad that, the teams that you want to not be fatigued and are racing to the finish are cramming in all their games. And again, it is based on success. If we've gone out of Europe, and again, this is why City fans found the positives. Them going out were like, well, we can concentrate on the title, but instead they're now having to get cramming all these games because of FA Cup and domestic kind of success. And again, it's hard to argue that point, isn't it? When you're saying, oh, woe is me. Too many games because I'm winning all these trophies. But for us, we're not winning. We haven't won a trophy. We might not win a trophy. And you saw at the end of that game, the Arsenal players just collapsed. And you just think, and people, I saw an awful argument. I think it might have been Charlie Austin or someone saying Southampton are in the same boat. And it's like, well, they're not, are they? Like, let's just, the level of competition And people would say the squad size, all these things. This is pretty mad. This is pretty mad to be playing semi-finals of Champions League and in a run-in against a state-owned team like Man City. They're going to be tired. It's a long season. I think they said last night PSG and Bayern were playing their 50th and 49th, I want to say, game this year. Arsenal will be playing their 57th tonight, so it's 8 more games. In some cases, 7 in the other. But what also adds to that is the French Federation moved PSG's games so that they could have way more rest for their Champions League. So they can benefit them. So the French league looks better because obviously they win their Champions League. And this happened to them last year. They've done it this year. It helped them last year. They won the FA Cup. There's also a knock-on because they had to do the Club World Cup. They were completely fatigued. So maybe they do need more rest. Bayern Munich have been able, because they're in a one-team league, they've won the league by the time it gets to the knockouts. And that's a reason why, if you look at the group stage or the league stage of the Champions League, all the English teams are in the top 8 pretty much. They're all just flying. Then it gets to the knockouts and all of a sudden what happens? They all start dropping out. And yeah, people could say, oh, style of play. The style of play is conducive to help winning the Champions League. You could see after last night. It would stem a lot of people's free-flowing football and it will make it tough. Clean sheets are king. Defenses win championships. These types of things. So it's not that. It's the fact that they're fatiguing because when other teams hit into high gear and start playing less games, the English Premier League, the teams are starting to play more games and they're putting them every 2 days and they're even moving fixtures around to make it even harder. So there is a lot to unpack in that sense. And as for the City trying to move that game, it's madness because back in 2021, Man United had to play 2 games in 2 days, if you remember. And there was no help from the Premier League. Liverpool had no support in 2020 from the FA. And they were forced to play kids, if you remember that game, when they had to play 2 in 2 days. And Arsenal have 3 games in 6 days this week, literally, which is every 2 days. So the congestion is just a path of the course, but it needs to change if you want to see more success in Europe. If they don't, that's fine. But you're also going to see a lot more ACL tears. When you look at Tottenham, they've got more ACL tears than they have home wins this season, which is a hilarious stat and also an equally terrifying stat. And then, yeah, you look literally this week when you're looking at what PSG and Bayern did. PSG won 3-0 away from home with 10 men, while they rested 8 of the starting 11 from last night. That's what they did at the weekend. They rotated heavily. They won 3-0 away from home, and they even had 10 men for the whole game. Bayern were 3-0 down and brought on all their starters at the end and won 4-3. We were in a 97-minute stalemate with Newcastle where our players collapsed at the end of it. That, and people wonder why the football's different. Yeah, of course. Of course they play very aggressive attacking football and it is lovely to watch. It is so good to watch. It's also helped because the speed in which they were coming and looking for the ball in that game last night, the speed in which they were closing down, it's not normal to be like, it's not normal to even see that any time in the season. But to see that at the end, when they've played 50 games, is crazy. And it can only happen with rest and rotation. And in one of our group chats, we were talking about it. And it's the snake eating its tail because people go, oh yeah, but Arsenal and City have the squads to do it. Yes, but we also don't because half of them are out because of the fixture build-up. So what happens is you end up going, all right, we lose Odegaard. For this season, we lost Odegaard, Havertz, Calafiori, Timber, and Saka for long periods. We've lost that this season, which is another huge reminder of the fact that we're where we are right now, and that is a real honest take on what we've dealt with this year with injuries. But what happens then is Gyökeres plays every single game. Madueke plays every game until he hurts his knee. He then goes on international duty to cover for Saka even in that level. He hurts his knee again. Martinelli pulled his hamstring right at the end of the game this week. And that's because Trossard missed 2 months. And he's been playing a lot of games. Ezza played pretty much the whole of the first half of the season because Odegaard was out. Now Ezza is getting reoccurring injuries. Havertz played all of last year up until January, I believe, and then he pulled a hamstring. Then he hurt his knee. And now he's coming back in. So you're like, oh, brilliant, we got Havertz back. But then he goes straight back out. And that's not because of fixture build. That's just because he's still dealing with that injury. So what does that mean? Gyökeres is going to play more games, which means he's more susceptible to injury. It's the same reason, for example, Odegaard's come back from injury. Based on our injuries right now, he played 90 minutes the other day, collapsed on the floor. He's going to play 90 minutes tonight. He's probably going to play 90 minutes at the weekend. Then next next Tuesday, he's going to play 90 minutes. Then the following few days, he's going to play another 90 minutes. Very likely, because Eza took an injury. And, people, Zoom Mendy, we could have lessened some of the load. Rice is too important a player. He's playing every 3 days. You literally saw it with PSG. With the rest, Hakimi pulls up with a hamstring. That could be the end of his season. You look at Salah at the weekend. Won't ever get the normal send-off for a Liverpool legend because he's out with a hamstring. He's done. A lot of these guys might even miss the World Cup. And it's probably because Hakimi was pressing in the 90th minute of a 5-4 Champions League game in the semi-final. And again, there's two ways of looking at it, but there's nothing helping itself. And the Premier League will never do anything to hinder themselves because they don't care about the European part. Like France, they care. They want people not to think it's a farmers' league. Other places like Bayern Munich in Germany, they don't want people going, like myself earlier, saying it's a one-team league. But the Premier League is so competitive, and it's getting more competitive. So it's going to be harder to win, and it's going to be very hard to go to distance in things like the Champions League because other places are actively helping their teams do better, giving them time off. And so, the snake is eating its tail, and there's no real way out. My natural reaction is like, but surely you can find motivation and energy to, because this is like history making. Like if they can win, we have 6 or 7. I'm doing the hand signal. Of course, we got 6 or 7 games left. If we win all of them, we probably win the double. And that'll be the best double in Arsenal's history. The first ever European trophy, first Premier League in 20 years. First Champions League final in 20 years. They're on they're the cusp of history. So you're naturally like, well, surely Rice can run a bit more. It's like, he probably can convince himself to. And he will collapse at the end. But it's whether his hamstring goes or not. Do you know what I mean? Or his ankle, or his Achilles, or his calf. So there's only so far you can push high-end athletes. And we're probably at the point. We're probably at the point where, and again, teams like Liverpool, now they've gone the distance in a quadruple chase, for example, and end up with a couple of domestic trophies. And they played, 67 games? The following year, they absolute drop off because of the energy. And that wasn't even a World Cup year. This is a World Cup year. I can't even imagine Declan Rice at the start of next year. The start of next season having this run in. He's got 6 or 7 games. He's going to have to play a part in all of them if he, touchwood, doesn't get hurt. He's then going to play every single game in the World Cup. He's then going to go away for 2 weeks, and he's going to get shipped off to America to start doing some preseason with Arsenal. And then they're going to go, we have to win every game this year. It's the only way we're going to win the league. And it comes another 60 to 65 game season. I think the one thing I think they could have done is maybe remove the Carabao. And if they don't want to remove the Carabao, maybe remove any team in Europe. So you're either in Europe or you're in the Carabao. It's like a consolation prize for trophies. It also make it really interesting for people winning cups. A little bit like the Conference League's been added to Europa. That could be a big benefit because you remove the now 5 Champions League teams, the 2 Europa, and the Conference. You're removing essentially the top 8 unless someone wins the European trophy the year before. But about 8 or 9 teams from the Premier League, and probably the 8 or 9 best from the year prior. It really gives teams in the Championship a chance. League 1 even. League 2 teams to make semis. It gives opportunity to teams like Everton, who have never won a trophy, never won anything every year. And I think that is really interesting. And again, Everton are a team, hopefully, can make Europe this year by beating City next Monday. But it's just, I don't know. Conference League being added is probably not beneficial to fixture build-up because, like what we're finding now, that Palace game is lingering because they're in the Conference League. Do we need 8 or 9 teams in Europe every year? Probably not. Do we need to have a Nations League or whatever it's called now in the internationals? Do we need 5 international breaks? Other countries are doing winter breaks. We're adding games. We're the only league that have 2 domestic trophies. It's just, I think there's something that needs to be looked at because I'm fine. I want to watch Arsenal every 2 days. That's my preference. But I don't like it when I'm seeing our players injured all the time and then being labelled as bottlers or something along those lines. That stuff's frustrating. I'd rather maybe they play every 4 days and a lot of them are fit. I want to see I want to see Eza play every game because he's fun. When you're paying, for Sky or for a ticket, you want to see the best players. You don't want to see, like we had last year, of the front three of Zinchenko, Winery and Tierney at a game. You don't want to turn up to a Premier League game and see that. No offence to those guys, but it's just you don't. It's not you're not what you signed up for. So it is tough. And with that, I think you saw such an unbelievable game last night in the Champions League. It was so good. I don't want anyone to question how much I loved it. But my word, there was some bad defending. And I know Company said the margins are tight when the teams are that good attacking. I get it. And the attacking football was unbelievable. But I mean, at least they allowed like that much room to run right through the middle of their defence and hit it into the top bins. I don't think that happens in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? It looks great, and it is really, but it wasn't even that skillful. I mean, like you saw Cherky do it against Arsenal, a similar goal, but a better goal, where he took it around with a load of skill. Elise pretty much just ran forwards, right through the middle of the best team in the world, currently probably in PSG. And you think, well, like the Kane to Diaz was just unbelievable football. You don't see anyone do that. These are high-end football players doing some high-end things. So that's not to. I don't want to discredit that, but I do think some of it, like, because when you send your fullbacks up and go, all right, we're going like for like, you can have an attack, we can have an attack. It is great football, and it's what Neville screams about because he comes from the Ferguson era, which they did play a bit like that because they basically, and this is what PSG and Bayern people like that do. When you're playing week to week, where you're better than 99% of the teams you play, and your wage bill is bigger than 99% of the teams you play, and the players you have are all in the top 50 players in the world, you can have a basketball game because you know what's going to happen. Your goalie's going to make more saves than theirs because your goalie's better and your forwards are better. So you can go, all right, that's why you see Bayern scores every week, like 5-2, 6-1. It's like, because they just went, well, you have a go, we'll have a go. And chances are, because our keeper's good and your players aren't as good as ours, and if you have a really good player, we'll have him next year. So when you do that, you can do that. And then when they turn up against each other, these teams that are from leagues where they can do that, they do it to each other. And it looks even more amazing. It looks like the Harlem Globetrotters. But the defending was awful because they just went, yeah. There was times where they deflected like a clearance and you're one-on-one. We've been trying all year to find that space because we play teams every week that have a block of 5. Everyone will talk about us being a defensive side. But we play that every week. The thing that they think we are, we play every week. And it's not until we get to the Champions League where we can score 4 goals. Because guess what? That team didn't do that. Do you know what one team didn't do it to us this year, home and away? Leeds. And we put away 9 goals and conceded none. Because that's almost what Bayern Munich and PSG are dealing with week to week. Even Real Madrid to an extent. And Barcelona. So when they get into the Champions League and someone gets a little pragmatic, it's a problem. It's shown in the stats. And Omri was talking about it last night on CBS. And he said, my good friend Jose Mourinho always told me defence wins trophies. When you look at it, Atletico, these are of the last 4 left. Atletico this season in Champions League conceded 24. PSG have conceded 17. Bayern have conceded 14. Arsenal conceded 5. That is so, and I think Simone was talking about it this week, saying the negative chatter around Arsenal is just ridiculous. And he was saying, I've been labelled defensive in the past and all these things. And he said, we've played them this year. And he said, the level of detail of like when you have to go, when you cannot go, when you do this, when you do this. He said, it's a marvel. It's not something to be like, this is boring football. Yeah, it's not as, I can tell you this. I've watched a lot of Arsenal games this year. None of it was as fun as what we saw last night. But I dare I say I haven't seen a game that good for 10 years, if ever. But you got 2 teams to rely on it. And again, by the sounds of it, both the managers said they're doing the exact same next week. So who knows? But you can because you kind of know you're good enough to do it. Whereas we know we're dealing with injuries and fixture build-up and title races. These guys aren't dealing with that. Atletico, La Liga are allowing them to rest all 11 players pretty much every week to make sure that they can try and get a La Liga team in the final. Whereas, yeah, we're playing a stubborn Newcastle team. They couldn't care less about and they shouldn't care about it. The FA couldn't care about it. And guess what? Fulham next week are licking their chops going, I hope they go to Atletico, have a real tiresome game, and then we can tire them out and get a point because we're looking for Europe. It's so competitive. And the natural, and it was funny because I watched it last night. I said to Joe, I was like, people really enjoyed that tonight. They're not going to like tomorrow. And they're not. But at the same time, we are also and I think this is the level of punditry we're looking at, is people think Atletico are the 2014, 2015 Atletico that they remember, the defensive masterclass. You know, like, do you know what I mean? They think they're that team that, people say Arteta and Simone are exactly the same. Literally, Simone in a press conference the other week said, we can't defend, so we have to attack. It's not the same Atletico. This is a team that Tottenham, I believe, scored, was it 5? 4? Something like that. They go toe to toe. They do what PSG and I nearly said Liverpool then. PSG and Bayern did last night. They do that. And our closest counterpart to that type of team is Liverpool. They do that. And they go, do you know what? Well, even in the Premier League, I know it's competitive, but they go, all right, well, our front three, more last year than this year. But let's say, it's Salah, Diaz, and do you know what? I don't even remember who was up front for Liverpool last year for whatever reason. But let's say it's Gakpo or Darwin. And they would go, well, if we look at the league, I think there's no one other than maybe 2 teams that have a better front, and only maybe one team has a better goalie and a better centre back. Maybe we've got the best centre back. And they go, all right, we'll just go basketball then, because chances are, probability tells me we're going to win 9 out of 10 games because we're just better. So Liverpool are the closest thing to what you're seeing in Europe. But Arsenal are more pragmatic. They are definitely more pragmatic. And I think that's what's going to happen tonight. Is it's going to be a really interesting game because Atletico are going to go for it. They're going to try and score 3 or 4. If you look at what they did against Barca, they scored, they went 3-0 in that first leg, and then Barca brought it back, but then didn't have enough in the second. That was away from home. And in Copa del Rey, they won 4-0 against Barca at home, and then lost 3-0 away and went through. They've had Barca's number this year, and it's because Barca play a high line and also play that style of let's go. So the last thing we need to do tonight, and it's what everyone's going to want, is let's go toe for toe. And we're not going to be as good because maybe our players are better. I don't know. But they're certainly not in form. They're certainly not in flow of being able to go toe-to-toe for anyone really right now. Dare I say anyone. Maybe Burnley. Maybe. I think if we go toe-to-toe in attacking football, I think we lose the most. Because I don't think they're rusty as far as attacking. We do a slow build-up. You know, we need that. We don't move the ball that quick at the minute. And they are shattered. So the last thing I want to see tonight, as much as I'd love to see attacking football, is also us get turned over 4-0. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a mountain to climb. This year's been, natural progression. We got back in the Champions League. We got through a knockout, which was the first time in, 15 years that we had won a knockout game. Then we did it the following year, but we did it in style. We won 7-1, and then we went to Bayern Munich and we lost, and we thought, we still aren't as good as the others, Then the following year, we get to the semi. We get even further. We get through Real Madrid. We meet PSG, and we were maybe a bit too timid in that home leg when we could have had them. And we went out and we didn't make a final. This year, we can't be doing that. But what we also can't be doing is playing into their hands. And the hands that they want to be played into is a back-and-forth basketball game. What Barcelona gave them. And you saw the speed they played at against Barcelona. It was really impressive. And that was also the reminder they aren't the Simone Atletico that everyone remembers. And when they're winning Champions Leagues or La Ligas. Saying that, did they win the Champions League? Or they got to Champions League final, sorry. It is a different team. And it's not that it's not that they're easier to beat now, because they're not particularly in great form. They're doing fine, but their attacking football is very nice. And there is a player, Alvarez, who could very well be an Arsenal player next season, who is really helping that. And Griezmann's, this is his send-off. There's a bit of mystique to that. Llorente, you got Simone Jr., as I call him. You got a lot of good players, and it looks like they're going to be without Barrios and Nico Gonzalez, which are really big misses, but they are still going to play free-flowing football, and they're going to be very open. So when you look at that, you think, oof, what do we do? Because unfortunately, we might be without Eza. We might be without Eza. Odegaard will have to play, but there's a chance that he's not up to 90 minutes. Without Havertz, without Timber, because I had that very strange moment in the press conference where they said, will Calafiori and Timber be available? And he said, yes, they're both in the squad or something. And they said, so can we just clarify Timber and Calafiori in the squad? And he said, no, Calafiori and Bukayo. And they were like, what about Timber? He goes, no. Very strange. It was very odd. But Timber not available. Calafiori looks like he'll be in the squad. Saka will be in the squad. Havertz won't be in the squad. I wonder if Hessa will. I don't know if Ezra travelled. I haven't seen enough of the getting on the plane clips, and they're usually pretty good at just hiding players that so the other team don't know who could potentially be available and who won't be. But you look at it and you think there is a chance we're going to see that scary front three of Martinelli, Gyökeres, and Madueke. I don't think we will, simply because I do think Martinelli might be injured, and if he's in the squad tonight, I'd be really interested because he went down, it seemed, with a big hamstring injury at the end of that Newcastle game. But Trossard, I think, was completely left out because that was the plan for him to play on that left. So I think you might see Trossard. I think you'll have to see Gyökeres, and I have no issue with that. And on that right, I really think if we can get a half even out of Saka, seeing him and Odegaard in that front four, I think is good. With Rice and Zubimendi, and then maybe in the second half you might have to make that change, and maybe Jesus comes on up front to kind of hold the ball up a little bit. And if depending on game state, you could bring on Madueke. Maybe if Eze is fit, he comes on as well. Maybe a Lewis Skelly in midfield, maybe an Norgard. And maybe we'll see a minutes in Calafiori as well, which would be very nice. So it is an odd one because, as always this season, it's been very cloak and dagger as far as who is fit and who isn't. Our manager doesn't help matters, I must admit. He really doesn't help matters. Just checking my notes. We've got nothing there. But it's going to be interesting. The other big plot, twist, dare I say, or maybe what's the good word for it? Talking point that could be tonight is the slippy pitch. So if you remember, Tottenham gave away like 3 goals to Atletico, and it was all to do with like slipping on the pitch. And they made a complaint to UEFA. Barcelona made the exact same complaint about a slippy pitch. So we got to be open to knowing that could happen. And with the way we're playing the ball out the back with maybe Travella passes and stuff under a good press, there is a high chance we could get really turned around if we overplay it in the box, because they are going to make that pitch very slick, very wet, and we need to be smart. And ideally, if you're going to go long, you want Havertz on. He's not available, so there's a couple of things that are kind of working against each other, a little bit oil and water in that team. But I do think it's too big a game to not start Saka and Odegaard. Because it does feel mentally like everyone's thinking about the Premier League, which is understandable. And I've said the whole season, that is the one we want to win. So we have to prioritise that. But I think a lot of people prioritising this home game next week is like, well, as long as we're just 1-0 down, max, like 1 goal, we can overcome that at home. We'll have enough energy in that. You saw the way we played against Bournemouth and Newcastle. There is no guarantees that we're just going to get all of a sudden free-flowing football because it's at the Emirates. Tonight's important. If you look at the Sporting one, we won that game based on the away performance, which was dogged, sitting in, waiting for our chance, and then swooping. And we won the game with that goal that was in the away fixture. It was 0-0 at home. It wasn't free-flowing football. And I don't think it's going to start now. I don't think magically we got into the last 6/7, doing a hand signal again, games, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're going to remember now. We've just lured you in. It's not that. They're tired. They are making odd decisions based on their cardio, in my opinion. So I think tonight's important. If it's a 0-0, a 1-0 win, even if game state changes, like a red or something for them, touch wood, not us, something like that happens, it'll be really important for us to kind of capitalise. If in the first 30 minutes you realise that maybe they're pressing very high and we're going long, and we're slipping through into 2-on-1 situations and stuff, we cannot do what we did with Gyökeres the other day where it was 3-on-1. Newcastle got a lot like these European teams in the last 15 minutes, and Saka was absolutely licking his chops with Odegaard. So I'm hoping if they come out strong, we'll be able to bypass that press and get some opportunities, because if you could get a couple, that changes everything, because the changes at the end of the game change. The energy even going into the Fulham game could change. The energy going into next week's game could change. Not to mention, if you can make a final, the energy that comes out of nowhere for that West Ham game, knowing we've got a 7 to 8 day rest. I think this game's really important. I think it's kind of been quietly forgotten in there of like, yeah, we just need to get through it. I think we're all kind of like, it's going to be a hard watch, but we're going to get through it. I think there's an element of like they need to, like a little trapdoor spider. They need to just sit in the waiting and see what Atletico we get, because sometimes you can get an Atletico that are there for the taking. Tottenham cut them apart at times in that game. They're not the best at set piece defending. We need to really take our chances and not kind of let this game become something that it shouldn't be. I mean, if they blow us away in 10, 15 minutes and all of a sudden get a goal, get a second goal, what we can't do is go chasing the game. It's a two-legged tie. You sit in there and you wait, you let that calm, and you try and pick your spots. You pick your counterattacks, spells in the game where we're going to have the ball, maybe set pieces, and you get that back to 2-1, and you go, okay, it's not ideal. It's a little bit of a molehill, maybe a mountain to climb, but it's there. And this is what I've been saying all season is, in the last 2 or 3 seasons, I feel like every time we got to this point in the season where we had something going for us, we created something almost ourselves, but not just ourselves. But we made a molehill into a mountain, and we could never. You always felt like you couldn't see beyond it. So you get to a semi, you beat Real Madrid, you get to PSG, and all of a sudden it's we lose the home leg. Now we've got to go to the Parc des Princes, and we have to win, and and you're like, nah. But then you start to believe, you hope, and you watch it, and you go, no, that's unfortunate. So you get your hopes up, but even going into it deep down, you went, it's just too much of a mountain to see past. I can't see the Champions League final. In the league, you're always 8 or 9 points behind the leaders and just hoping, could they lose 3 in a row? That's the mountain, you can't really see the finish line because you're like, I don't know if it's possible. We keep getting ourselves into these situations where even sometimes when they're good situations, we almost self-destruct and create the mountain for them. And then we have to, you're always in that kind of like, like the stories, like the fairy tale, and they go, but what if? We're always in that. Like, I don't want the second leg next week to be, well, we're 2 goals down. Can we score 3? And it's all about that first 30 minutes where we got all this energy. We have to get a couple or get one, make it a game. And all of a sudden you get to 30 minutes and huffed and puffed, nothing happened. And you're thinking, all right, it's not our year. What a shame. We got a great draw. We just couldn't do it. We tied out. We start making, dare I say, excuses. And then we get back to the league and that energy carries on and we go, oh my God, what's happening? It is so kind of possible. And I think keeping everything manageable, keeping that finish line in sight, keep it a molehill. If it's next week, make it 1-0, make it a draw, make it a 1-0 win, make it really visible. Same within the league. At the minute, it's a molehill. It's a goal difference between us and City. Keep winning. Even if it's 1-0 throughout the end of the season, it keeps that finish line in sight. And yet, City could easily blow a couple teams away 3 or 4-0 and not lose either, and they just win the league on goal difference. But at least we could see it right through to the end. Don't make it so on the last day we're like, well, City have to lose by 2. We have to win by 2. I don't want that. I don't want next week us to be getting ready for Atletico and going, do you know what? If we get 2 early goals, there's a chance we could be in it. And then we're hoping on a set piece at the end to kind of take it extra time. I don't want that. And the last thing we need right now is extra time next week. But I don't want that. I want us to really keep things manageable and just kind of... I had a complaint that we were a bit naive in the Champions League a couple of times where I even felt that way last night a little bit when PSG went 5-2 up. I thought with Munich, I said, it's stick or twist because there's no reason that Munich couldn't win 3-0 next week or 6-3 and win by 3 goals and take it extra time. So I was like, they're not out of this tie, but what they don't want to do is go for it. And, it goes to 6-7 and the tie is over. And they did go for it. But there was a pragmatic style. You could see PSG, there was a spell when they started to lose goals. And then Bayern Munich kept pushing and Paris could have easily gone up by another couple goals. And it was such a risk. And you'd never see us do that. But I just don't want the naivety to come in tonight. And maybe you go 1-0 down in that first flurry and they panic and they start trying to attack and we go down by 2. And then you start in that thing where, I imagine, I think it's a rough one. Like when you see like a comedy or something where the guy's like trying to, I'm going to bring back blood. There'll be like a comedy and he's got like a bag of blood and he's like, don't spill it. And he spills a tiny bit. And then like, as he does, he slips, he hits like a tray of it. That goes everywhere. And then he slips and hits another thing. You don't want to create that, in a game where it's like 1-0. Okay, it's fine. Just keep relaxed. Oh, it's 2. Oh, it's 3. Similar to what Sunderland were like the other night. We don't want that situation. So we need to keep calm. A result here would be unbelievable because obviously, like I said at the start of this episode, we are seriously doing podcasts and talking and previewing a game that is a semi-final that is winnable. This is a game we won this year 4-0. Not at home. But either way, we beat this exact team 4 months ago 4-0. They know it. The correspondents in Madrid have said that essentially there is a fear to it, like this just don't get beat bad, which is good. This is what you need in Europe. You need teams to fear us and not kind of be like, oh, they've overstayed their welcome. You want teams to be a bit worried because it just helps the atmosphere, like how we feel when we go to PSG or Bayern Munich in the semis and quarters and all these kind of things. So we got to keep that up. The thing I would say is there's an odd mirroring to last year of we beat PSG 2-0 last year early in the groups, and we ended up getting them in the semis. And the team that we played in the group or the league stage and the one we faced in the knockout were very different. If you remember, they'd really grown into the season, become a completely different team almost. And from what I've heard from Atletico correspondents, is similar to that. They were kind of trying to play the Simone style at the start of the season, and they've kind of adapted into this free-flowing, fun team, and it's worked well for them. They're a very different team to the team we played earlier in the season. Dare I say, more open. But if you remember the Atletico game, I think it was, I want to say 0-0 or 1-0 at half time, and I think Alvarez hit the bar. They had a couple chances where I think they fizzed it across the box and they didn't quite get to it, but it could have gone to 1-1, 2-1 even. But instead, we get a set piece goal, and then we put them to the sword. And I remember Gyökeres scoring later on as well, and it was almost like it came late on, very similar to what we did last year, where we were kind of in games till late. If you remember the Man City at home, that was a 1-1 game at 60 minutes, and then we win that 5-1. But at 60 minutes, when they went 1-1, I really thought they were going to go on to win that. They were kind of playing better, and then we just took it to them. We need that kind of attitude, I think. Is similar to what we were at the start of the season. If we see an opening, if there's something tactically wrong tonight or technically, we need to try and put them to the sword. We need to get at them and go, all right, well, if we could get 2 tonight, why not? Because this is only confidence going into the weekend, next week, and all that. And if you actually look at the fixtures, I haven't got the exact dates, but I was looking at it last night. There was a really good graphic I wish I could find, and it was every day between now and the end of the season to the Champions League final. And when we play and when City play, and we're in that cluster. Like I said earlier, we got 3 games in 6 days. We got, I think it's 4 in 11 or whatever it is. We've got, is it 5 in 15? And City aren't. City are having 7 days rest a lot of the time at the minute. But they're about to go into their crazy one. Probably at the worst of time, right at the end. You don't really necessarily want to deal with that. But they're going to be in a situation where the games come quick and fast when they have to win all of them, and other teams they're playing won't be playing as frequently. So it could be tough for them. I don't know, but we're in the midst of that right now. We have to just keep our head above water. Like I said, keep it a molehill, not a mountain. Keep ploughing away. If it's I'll take 1-0 tonight, 1-0 at the weekend, 1-0 next week, 1-0 the week after that against West Ham, and just go, where are we? What's happened? Is everything all right? And that's when City are in the thick of theirs. So we're in the moment. We need to enjoy it because as fans, this is what we dream of. Some big semi-finals, finals, run-ins where you actually have a chance. I'm not saying we're in a run-in where we're 3 points behind the whole time and, just hoping that they drop points. I'm talking we're in a legitimate run-in where it's in our hands, it's in their hands. It's an actual run-in. First time since, I think, 99, Man United and Arsenal, that the two teams have been this are on level points with 4 games remaining or 5 games remaining. 5 games remaining. Is it 5? Yeah. 5 for us. 4 for us, 5 for them. So that's why these podcasts are going to come out quick and fast. We've got today, like I said, this one here, which was solo. I don't know what time I'm on, to be honest. I have no clue what the time is. But then the end of the week on the Patreon, we'll have a preview for Fulham at home, and a bit of a review of this Atletico game and how that goes. Because if you're on here on iTunes and Spotify, the next time you're going to hear me is Monday. So much could happen. We could be in a very bad situation in the Champions League or in a very good situation. We could also be in a very good situation in the Premier League or a worrying one. Because by the time you hear us again on that Monday, we'll be gearing up for that night, which is the City game. So we'll be doing that at the end of the week. Monday, you'll be getting an ad-free on the Patreon and here on iTunes and Spotify with the ads, which will be us kind of discussing what happened with the Fulham game, where we are, and also talking about the City game that night, and also previewing the Atletico second leg on the Tuesday night. And then on the Wednesday, we'll be kind of reviewing everything that's happened from here to there. Because between now and next Wednesday, when you hear Joe's voice again here on the podcast, we would have played Atletico twice. This is how often we were playing. And we might be 6 points. We might be 6 points clear of the top of the Premier League. We could also be 5 points clear. We could also be 3 points clear. Either way, something. Or we could be level again and having played a game more. We don't know, but so much can happen. So the Patreons are going to come out quick and fast as well because, like I said, previews, reviews, even so much correlation to the City games that are going on at the same time. It's big time. So if you do want to do it, this is a great time to do it. And like I said, we're also going to do World Cup all the way through the summer as well, and transfers and extra transfer dailies and all that kind of stuff on the Patreon. So if you're into it and you enjoy it, please subscribe to the Patreon. It would help the show. But I will be back here on this one on Monday when so much could have changed. Joe will be back on the Wednesday with me. But if you want a bit more of this, there's going to be loads coming out on the Patreon between now and Monday. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.